Holly, and I am back with another tropes video, and today we are going to talk about a trope I really enjoy, and that is the virgin hero. So originally I was going to address just like virgins in general. One, that's a pretty large topic, and two, virgin heroines happen very often, so like what am I gonna say about that, you know? I mean, maybe someday we'll talk about that, but you know, but the virgin hero, I love it. It's more of a character trope than like a plot trope or a plot device, but it is one that I really enjoy. I think the reason I like it is that virgin heroes are really rare, and I think it's interesting to see like how that happened, and because like our society, and like one of the books I'm going to talk about is a historical, so even historically how our society views virginity between men and women differently. So I think that's an interesting play, and you actually see that in the books that I'll talk about. And so I kind of like seeing these guys who have not followed the norm for whatever reason, and remained a virgin. And I think that's interesting because like in a lot of times in romance, which I read a ton of historical romance and I read a lot of new adult, and in both of those, new adult less and less, but still, the female character, if it's a male-female relationship, the female character is almost expected to be virginal, and the man has like no expectations on him. And so, and it's not that the men have an expectation on them in here, in the books I'm going to talk about that I've read, but I like seeing them, especially like in the historical setting, honoring that part of society too, in the same way that women were expected to. I think that's interesting. Plus, in my experience, a lot of these guys tend to be very kind and caring. I don't think that like remaining a virgin for however long makes you a better or a more caring person. It might just be that like authors, when they write this type of character, for some reason also write really nice guys. I don't know. Like two of the ones for sure that I'm going to talk about, I feel like could easily be classified as beta males, and as I get older I find myself more attracted to the beta male character than the alpha male character, so I like that. And while I was planning this video out and I was like taking notes, I thought of something that I don't fully know how to explain, and like how to explore this topic, and maybe it's like a different video and it's a different thing to discuss. Like maybe it's a different trope, or it's just something else that happens. But I started thinking about, what about characters who maybe have had sex in like a heterosexual relationship, but either end up discovering that they're bi, or maybe they are gay and they just didn't know. So like Him and Us by Serena Bowen. In there, the one character is gay and the other character, yeah, he's bi. I'm pretty sure he ends up deciding he's bi. But other than the other male lead, he's only ever been with women. So being with that man is like a new, different thing for him. And so I'm wondering if that is kind of along the same like line of the virgin hero trope, or if it's something completely different. And I have not read nearly enough like LGBTQ plus stories to have like a thoughtful opinion. Not that that stopped me from making that amnesia tropes video, but you know, I feel like this is a little more serious of a topic to like just go spouting off about. but if there's like a larger trend or a larger character type thing in that, like you have with straight romances. I don't know. So if you have any thoughts, if any of that made sense, let me know down below. Maybe I'll make a video. It's hard because it's like I have these videos I want to make that are like discussion videos, but like even me just saying words and then you commenting, that only does so much, right? Now let's talk about some examples that I have read, and I have actually recently in this year reread all 3 of these books. So let's get started. So first I'm going to talk about the historical romance, and that is When the Duke Returns by Eloisa James. This is like the 4th book, I think, in her Desperate Duchesses series. You do not have to read them all. And this one, both of the characters are virgins in here. They are married when they are young children, and then he like goes on an adventure around the world, and as she gets older, she's like, dude, you need to come home. I need a husband. I'm not getting any younger. I would like to have sex. So she basically acts out in an attempt to make him come home and get her, and he does, and they like don't know each other. And she is incredibly surprised to find out he's a virgin. That's actually like one of the like opening, I don't think it's the first line. Yeah, there's like a prologue, and then chapter 1 starts with, he's a virgin? What? He's a virgin. Your husband is a virgin and he won't bed me. Eloisa James, I saw an interview with her where she read that. Or like a thing with her. But in here, so he remains a virgin because I think he's in like his late 20s when this book happens. Because he thinks that if he, first of all, he views himself as married to her, and he thinks that if she has expectations on her, he should have the same expectations. And he actually like has never even kissed anybody either, so he like goes hardcore. But again, because they've been married for so long, to him that's being like faithful in a way. And so what that does in this book that I really like is seeing them kind of learn how to be a couple both emotionally and sexually, because they're both inexperienced, and it is a huge part of their relationship growing together. Like they have chemistry, they are attracted to each other, but learning how to make everything work and how to communicate with each other and everything, I think is really interesting. And again, it's just nice to have, I think this was the first virgin hero story I ever read, so to have something that was just different was really like refreshing to me. And so then the other 2 books I have are actually by the same author, and that is Serena Bowen. So first we'll talk about Keepsake, which is the 3rd book in the True North series. You do not have to read these in order, but I highly recommend you do because they're all really good books. These take place in Vermont, and this follows Zach, who works on this farm. A large portion of these books, especially at the beginning of the series, follows this family called the Shipleys, and they own a farm in Vermont, and Zach actually works on that farm. And when he was like 19, he was kicked out of a cult, which you learn, you know that from the earlier books, but in here you learn why he was kicked out and all of that, and his growing from that. And he's like early 20s, I think he's like 22 or 23 in this. And he ends up in Vermont and working on this farm. He's really sweet, he's really hardworking, he's just a precious, adorable, kind man. And then Lark, the heroine in here, she was kidnapped while doing like non-profit work. Is that like the right thing to say? I don't know, words are hard. And so she's dealing with some stuff, so she goes to this farm to spend time with a friend and kind of to just like get away from her family, and because she's now no longer kidnapped. And they connect, and she is not a virgin. But his virginity is public knowledge, like everybody knows it. And it's really interesting. He's not like opposed to having sex. because of his upbringing, he has like he has like some sort of hang-ups around it, more just like emotional, just like baggage around it, but he's not opposed to it. He would love to have sex, like, you know, but at the same time, he is an incredibly respectful and kind man. And again, it's just really interesting to read about. And it's also interesting in this case because she's not a virgin and she is more knowledgeable than him, to see her kind of take control a lot of times in situations, and not in like a BDSM way, even though, but it's like, that's your thing or whatever, you do you. But just like she is like the person with the more power, not in a negative like power differential, this is like a toxic relationship kind of way, but just what you see a lot in romance especially is like the woman being like, I don't know what to do and I'm just some awkward girl that doesn't know anything. And instead you have a girl who knows what she wants, is comfortable with her body, and then this guy who also knows what he wants and is also comfortable with his body, because just because he hasn't had sex doesn't mean he knows nothing. It'd be nice if more female characters were written that way, but that's fine. And just seeing that interplay and how like they work together and everything. Am I explaining this well? I don't know. And actually, I feel like the Shameless Hour by Serena Bowen, which is book 4 in her Ivy Year series, is similar. So in this one you have, and again, you don't need to read all of these books in order to read these, but I highly recommend you do because they're amazing and beautiful stories. This book is actually a really hard read, I will say that. There is like some extreme slut shaming in here, and as somebody who like doesn't get triggered by pretty much anything, and I would not say I was triggered by this. And this was my second time reading it, I was incredibly bothered by the things that happened to the heroine in this story. It's just really hard to read people being treated that way by other people. But Bella is kind of the character that you would read a lot about, especially at the beginning of New Adult, the like slutty girl that hangs out with the dudes, and like she's one-dimensional, but Bella is not that character. But she is very sex positive, and she's very like, she knows what she wants and she asks for it and she doesn't screw around. I mean, yeah. And then apparently, well, the audiobook said Rafe, or it said Rafe, and I've said Rafe this whole time because it's R-A-F-E, but I could be wrong. I think that's how it's spelled, right? Let me look. That's what happens when you read audiobooks. Yeah. So I don't know, his name is Raphael. He is a virgin. He's a virgin because, again, he's not opposed to having sex, but he does have some like hang-ups around it. So his mom got pregnant very young and has just really instilled in him the idea of like, don't have sex unless you're ready to have a kid, which I have to say is how I was raised. So, you know, I feel you, Rafe. I feel you. Or Raphael? I don't know. So he has that in his mind. Like, his mom is very like, I don't think they ever address it, but maybe it's just because of me. Like, I just picture her as like this like strict Catholic lady because that's like my mom. But so, you know, she's more conservative and everything. So he has that in the back of his mind, but also because of that and all of this, he's also always treated women with a ton of respect. And like, he has had like girlfriends in the past and he's like fooled around with them, but he's never pressured them. Or like, I think sometimes when people are in relationships, it like, pressure could be the right word, but it could also be more like just a little nudge, and it's something maybe you need. But he doesn't go there. He's like, you're not comfortable, that's fine, you're completely not comfortable. And So again, he's just like a really sweet guy. And this one is interesting because they actually have sex really early in the story. He ends up breaking up with his girlfriend at the beginning of the story, and he was planning on sleeping with her. And then he like runs into Bella, and they casually know each other, and they hook up, and she has no idea that he's a virgin. And then he feels a lot of shame about it, and there's a lot of that in the book, like dealing with the like stigma or just like differing ideas and outlooks and thoughts on sex. And I think especially juxtaposing these two characters who have different like philosophies almost is interesting. And it's not that he is opposed to sex, he's just more of like a monogamous person, and she's more of just a like let's have fun person. So I think that makes for an interesting story, and I really like this. I love this book. It's 5 stars. It's a beautiful story. Yeah, so those are the books that I've read. I'm going to try and find lists of Virgin Hero romances, and I will link them below. I'm assuming I can find some, but I haven't looked yet, I'll be honest. But let me know if you have read this trope before, or any books with this, if you've liked it, if you've disliked it, if you have any recommendations, leave those as well. And I will talk to you later. Bye!